Very good day to all of you. So, today we will take the poem Death Be Not Proud, written by John Donne. It's one of the most beautiful and remarkable poem. It's a sonnet by John Donne. Its popularity lies in its message. As the title suggests, as you will read the title, Death Be Not Proud. So it's an address to death and it's giving a message of hope that is couched in eloquent and quotable language. Donne's theme tells the reader that death has no right to be proud. Since human beings don't die but live eternally after one short sleep. So the poem, it's a sonnet and it describes a beautiful theme, a message that one should not feel fear, one should not be scared of death. So, if you talk, let me tell you something about the poet. So, John Donne, he shifted dramatically in his life. If we talk about the early John Donne, then he was the passionate lover and rebel of sense. And the later Donne, a man consumed with his own spiritual journey and search for truth. So, in the previous video, we have discussed that he was a metaphysical poet, he was a love poet, he has written some religious poems also. So, though he is predominantly, he is known as one of the most remarkable metaphysical poet because he has written so many beautiful metaphysical poetry. So it's a genre in which the most heterogeneous ideas they are yoked by violence together, and nature and art are ransacked for illustrations, comparisons, and allusions. So John Donne has taken a romantic form and he transformed a transcendental struggle of life and death into a quiet ending, one in which death shall be no more. So, it's a poem, as the title suggests. If we read the poem is addressed to death, and it's a very bold poem. The theme of the poem is very bold, as he is addressing to death, and he is calling that death you should not feel proud. So, if we read the poem, then the poem goes like this. So, let's get started with the poem. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which thy pictures be, much pleasures than from thee much more must flow, and soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and souls delivery. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate man, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell. And poppy of charms can make us sleep as well. And better than thy stroke, why swellest thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death thou shalt die. So, in the very first line, the poem is an address to death. So John Donne he has mixed Shakespearean and Petrarchan sonnet according to the rhyme scheme. So the poem in the first quatrain, in the first line, the speaker is personifying death, telling him that he should not be proud, although some people call him mighty and dreadful, mighty, powerful. But it is not so, and this is the reason for not being proud. The speaker then says that death cannot do anything because he thinks that he killed many people, but actually they are not dead. Then he addresses death, saying that death is a poor thing, even though he cannot destroy or kill him. If you read the first quatrain, you will find that he has tried to change the conventional idea. Death is supposed to be very powerful. It's we all are uh, scared and afraid of death, but he is saying that we should not feel proud of death, though many people have called death mighty and powerful. But death is not like that. And for those who think that death has killed, they do not die. And he calls death poor. So it's a total, he is challenging death that you are poor and you cannot kill me. So, death now, if we talk about the next quatrain, from rest and sleep, which thy pictures be. So, death, he says in the second quatrain, the speaker is giving us a proof that death is just like sleep and rest. And he is comparing death to sleep and rest. He is asking what we get from sleep and rest, but pleasure, and if sleep and rest are a copy from the original, so from death, we are going to get more pleasure. So the speaker is telling us that when death come to us, it will free our souls and it will rest our bones, and our souls will fly from this prison, which is the body. So he is telling us that we should not be afraid from it because it happens every day. It's a common phenomena because one person who is born, he is supposed to die. So it's natural. So one should not feel fear of death. Whosoever comes in this world, he is sure to die, because everybody is mortal. Nothing is immortal. So why we should feel fear of death? Why we should not be afraid from death? Because it happens every day. It's a universal truth. The speaker is giving us another proof that death is not mighty. He is considering death as a slave to fate, because the slaves cannot control themselves, but they obey orders, especially when people want to commit suicide. He goes with them, and also he is slave to chance and kings. So he is saying rest of their bones and souls delivery. So he is saying that death gives rest to soul, and it's a kind of it delivers soul from the prison of body. So, if we talk about the next stanza, the poet is calling death as a slave, and death is slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, or and it does it work with the help of poison, war, sickness. So he says that death, on its own, it cannot do anything. Death is not strong enough, and this is better than striking us, because we will be waiting to die. After all, the speaker is asking him why he is proud of himself. The speaker is telling that death that he is not afraid of him, because after this sleep, what will happen? He will wake up and he will live eternally after death. So, death is given totally a negative treatment, or this is a very bold and unconventional poem, and because death is given negative human traits, pride is attributed to death. Pride, because death considers itself very powerful. He compares death to a slave, and it's a personification, and he is saying, "Death, be not proud." So he is comparing death to a person who is very proud. So Donne ends the poem. If you read the line, one death and death shall be no more, death thou shalt die. So here you will have the example of paradox and irony. Because he is saying it is death who will die. We will not die. So we should not feel afraid of death. So John Donne, though it's a the poet has used in this near conceit, death himself is fooled. It's limited by the surface. So though he is considered the monarch of destruction, but the poet has called death as poor death. So, death is not powerful. In fact, it's the object of pity, its slave, and it's the last enemy that will be thrown into the lake of fire. So the poem, in the end, it gives a message that we should not feel fear of death, and death is considered, it's deemed a slave, a unique trope, one which the poet fashions with wit and wisdom. So fate is far greater the force than the end of life. So the poet has used sickness, that's the necessary pause for men who cannot contain their passions for the growing race of human beings. He has used other things also, like poison, sickness, popular charms, sleep. So in the what the poet wants to say, that death dies, or is death dying? So what's a wicked end? The poet has mocked, he has derided, and he has denounced and diminished death. He is talking about death into a cruel joke, a maxim that maximizes the power of men reborn. So fate is fated to disappear, chance has become certainly, kings of limited renown are dethroned, and desperate men now hope. So John Donne indeed has done and dispensed with death and mortal men ever, so they may rejoice. So it gives a message that we should not feel fear of death, because it's a universal truth, and we should we should not feel fear of death, but we should enjoy a life, because death is, in the end, it's the death that will die. Because after a human being soul leaves, it's a the soul will feel free from the body, and it will enter into eternity. So it's the death that will die. So I hope you will have got the poem, and you have found this thing useful. Thank you.